Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life, that there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter in your mind, driving you mad. It is this feeling that has brought you to me. Do you know what I'm talking about?
The Matrix.
Do you want to know what it is? The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us. Even now, in this very room. You can see it when you look out your window or when you turn on your television. You can feel it when you go to work, when you go to church, when you pay your taxes. It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth.
What truth?
That you are a slave, Neo. Like everyone else, you were born into bondage, born into a prison that you cannot smell or taste or touch. A prison for your mind.
Human beings are slaves. They are not born as slaves, but if you look around the world and if you're honest with yourself, you'll see that human beings are in chains everywhere you look. Their chains aren't divisible. Of course, because while the human condition is slavery, it is covert slavery, as opposed to overt slavery, like the type experienced by black people in America until relatively recently, which was legalized by the government. Overt slavery still exists as well, unfortunately, in places like Afghanistan, where the women are basically slaves. But Islam uses religion to justify it, and so nobody says anything.
In recent months, even women's hair salons have been shut down by the Taliban. We met two sisters online to hear firsthand how it now feels to be a woman in Afghanistan. One of the two had a master's degree, but was made to quit her job, and the other, who is 16 years old, hasn't been to school for 2 years.
It's very difficult to leave home. In the past we could meet our friends, but now you don't want to leave home as the outside world is a hostile environment. With a university degree, I am sitting at home doing nothing.
The thing that made me leave my religion is that there is a lot of humiliating principles in Islam. As a woman, I can't believe in these things. No one is in his fully mental health would believe in that, because this is insulting for humanity, honestly.
They deny this. They say, oh, women get a lot of rights, and many Western women even become Muslims.
They don't want to admit that there is a lot of wrong things in Islam.
And even many Muslim women accept this form of slavery because it's what Allah wants. From the moment the child is born, society begins transforming that child into a slave. And believe it or not, government is at the center of this.
In essence, when you were born and far too young to understand, a company with your name was created through your birth certificate. When your parents registered your birth, they actually created a company and handed ownership of that company and you over to the state. It is important to remember that your parents were tricked and had no idea this was happening. This is why the state can take children from their families and it not be classed as kidnapping. They own your child.
I've had it from social workers, at least now 3 social workers on separate occasions have come out of audiences and actually said to me, you're right in what you're saying is because we have to get the birth certificate within 48 hours of taking the child. And if they can't get the birth certificate, they have to reapply to be able to get the birth certificate. They have to get it because that is proof of who the slave is, what the slave is. And actually, in legal terms, they're actually only entitled to the birth certificate and not the child.
They've even made it so that if you don't register your child into their system, you get fined. The word register comes from a Latin word regis, meaning king or to rule over. So basically when you register something, you've handed over title ownership of that thing, whether it's your car or your child or whatever else you registered to the king, or in the new world order that we live in, to the government. This is why if your child is registered, the government can take them away whenever they decide that you are not raising them right. This may sound crazy, but it has happened to many people, and in some cases, the children which the government take away from their parents end up getting sex trafficked. This is the kind of world that we live in.
They found nearly 978 children went missing in 2019.
2,700 a day.
72 missing children across Indiana, Iowa, Ohio, and Georgia in the past several weeks.
115 per hour.
In the meantime, the Arizona Department of Child Safety says tonight they can't locate 44 children who are supposed to be in their custody.
One every 30 seconds.
Some in this operation were trafficked, some sexually and or physically abused.
This child trafficking thing is real. It has always existed.
You see, the old world order was ruled by a monarchy, but as time went on, the powers that be realized that for people to not rebel, they have to believe that they have the power. They have to believe that they are free. So government and democracy replaced the monarchy, which is the New World Order.
What is at stake is more than one small country. It is a big idea, a new world order.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order.
There's going to be a new world order out there, and we've got to lead it.
Nothing less than a new world order. This is the pledge of the world's most powerful leaders, representing 90% of the global economy. Thursday's G20 summit, they say, has changed the rules of the game.
Society, and consequently government, is not interested in free people. It is afraid of freedom. And the government needs only slaves because only slaves can be exploited.
Hey, an alien! Yes, I've travelled across space to check on the progress of your species. Cool. Shall I take you to our leader? Your what? Our leader, the guy in charge. The guy in charge of what? Well, in charge of everything. You have one guy in charge of everything? No, he's in charge of government. What is government? Well, government makes the rules for us. It tells us what we can do and what we can't do. So is government really smart? They come up with wise rules for you to follow? Well, mostly. But some of its rules are really stupid. Do you disregard those rules? No, we have to follow the rules, even if they are stupid or we disagree with them. Government punishes anyone who disobeys the rules. So you are slaves to government? No, it's not like that at all. Government works for us, the people. It serves us. We're the boss. It tells you what to do, and it punishes you with violence if you disobey it, and yet you're its boss? Yeah. But there are some things government does that you don't like. Well, yeah, not everything government does is popular, like spending on wars, for example.
The US has sent more than $70 billion worth of aid to Ukraine since Russian troops crossed its border last year. But now a battle is brewing in Washington over the Biden administration's request for over $20 billion more.
What is a war? It's when government basically spends the people's money on weapons and soldiers and then sends them over to the other side of the world to kill a bunch of people over there and destroy their country. I don't like it that government does this.
Well, I can see why you might not like that. Have you humans reached the stage where you generally consider stealing, enslaving and killing each other to be bad things?
Oh yeah, we know that. Don't steal, don't attack, don't assault.
But you give money to government and they use it to kill people.
Well, yeah. But government does good things with tax money as well.
Why don't you stop paying for the things you don't like and only pay for the good things it does?
No, we can't do that. You can't just decide to stop paying taxes because the rules say that everyone has to pay taxes.
But the rules come from government though, don't they?
Yeah.
So government made a rule which says that everyone has to pay them money. So everyone pays taxes because if they didn't, government would punish them using violence?
Well, yes, but most people don't mind paying taxes. Most people feel obligated to pay taxes and obey government laws because it's for the good of society. Society needs government, and that means we all have to pay taxes.
That's why I'm running for re-election.
So just to make sure I've got this straight, government makes the rules and you feel obligated to follow the rules, even the ones you don't like, and it tells you what to do and threatens to punish you if you don't do what it says, and it uses some of the money that it's taken from you using threats of violence to pay for things you don't like and actually think are immoral, like mass murder.
Yeah, but we can ask it to please tell us to do smart things, and please don't take our money and use it to kill people. We're allowed to ask them to tell us to do what we want them to tell us to do.
Are you guys just scared of this thing? Is government some huge monster that can just squish you at any moment if you disobey?
No, government isn't a monster.
Well, what is it then? Could you draw me a picture of it?
Government isn't really the sort of thing you can draw a picture of.
Maybe you could take me to it. Where is government?
You mean the building?
Government is a building.
No, but the politicians who make up the government have buildings they work from.
So government is a group of these politicians?
Yeah.
Okay, so what species are these politicians?
Well, they're human.
Like you?
Yeah.
So politicians are humans and they're government. You're a human, but you're not government.
No.
So it's the politicians, they're the ones that boss the rest of you around and make you do things you don't want to do and take your money using threats of violence. But even though you're all humans, you're not allowed to boss them around and take their money?
No, they'd put us in a cage if we did that. But look, it's not like the politicians can just do whatever they want. Like, a politician can't just come up to me on the street and make me give him money. They can't do that. Politicians can only do things like that in their job, when they're working for government.
Oh, so politicians aren't government, they just work for government?
Yeah.
Okay, so government isn't a monster, and it isn't a building, and it's not politicians, it's something else. And it employs politicians, who are just regular humans, who get to order everyone else around and take their money. How does a regular human become a politician?
Well, that's the great thing about our government. It's a democracy, and that means that the people actually have the power.
Because democracy basically means government by the people, of the people, for the people. But the people are retarded.
Because we get to decide who among us get to be the politicians. We get to vote. And if a politician starts doing things we don't like, we can just replace him with someone else at the next election.
So the people that get chosen to be politicians only get to boss people around and take their money for a short time, and then they go back to being regular humans?
Exactly.
That sounds like a powerful position to be in. But if you get to choose who does that, I assume that politicians are always the wisest, most honest, caring and respected people among you.
Well, no, not really. I wouldn't say politicians are known for being honest, or wise, or caring. And they're certainly not the most respected people among us. Come to think of it, most politicians are lying, power-hungry crooks.
The ones you chose?
Yeah, they're always doing things we don't like. They use taxpayers' money to enrich themselves and their friends, and they never keep their promises to voters. They've been caught stealing and lying and taking bribes, and they mostly do what the big corporations want. Yeah, they're always doing stuff like that. They're completely corrupt. They're a bunch of lying crooks.
But you said that most humans know that stealing and beating each other up and killing are wrong. And you said that you have the power because you can change who's in charge. So why don't you just replace the lying, thieving, murderous, crooked politicians with some regular people?
Well, we don't try to elect lying crooks. It just always turns out that way. But we have to have a government because some humans are nasty and might kill or enslave or steal. Civilization just couldn't survive without government.
Let me get this straight. Because you're worried about the small number of nasty people that are willing to kill, enslave and steal, you think it's necessary for your survival to have a system where some humans among you, for a short while, get to call themselves the government, and they get to order everyone else around like slaves and, if they want, commit mass murder overseas, using money they stole using threats of violence. Politicians get to kill, enslave and steal, because if they didn't, someone else might? And you try to elect good, honest people to be politicians, but what happens every time is that the people you elect turn out to be corrupt, evil, lying crooks. That's your system.
Yeah, that's pretty much government.
So slavery was never abolished, it just became more subtle. Most people think that just because they can work and buy whatever they want, that means they're free. But this isn't the case. First of all, when you work, what happens? The government takes a percentage of your pay against your will, and they get to decide how much they take and what they use it for. Is that freedom? If taking 100% of somebody's income is slavery, at which point is it not slavery? At 90%? 80%? 50%? The truth is, as long as somebody else is taking the money you work for against your will, no matter the amount, you are a slave. To make matters worse, they use your money to fund wars through the military-industrial complex, which many of them have bought stocks in. So when they orchestrate a war, and most wars are orchestrated, they profit financially from it. Meanwhile, the average person who is funding war claims to be against it, while also supporting a system that literally orchestrates these wars. People also think that just because they can get in their car and drive wherever they want, whenever they want, that this means they're free. But this also isn't the case. To drive, government says you need a license. Well, what does the word license mean? It means permission. So if you're free, why do you need permission to travel in your own car, which you have to pay a registration for again?
A video, please.
What's that?
Let me just start my video, please.
Your video?
Yeah, I'm just gonna record this interaction.
Okay. I need your license for that ticket.
What makes you believe that I need that to travel from point A to point B?
Because you have no license on your plates on your vehicle, sir.
If you could please get a supervisor out here, I'd appreciate it, sir.
Okay, do me a favor and then turn the car off then. I'll get a supervisor out here for you.
Oh, I'm not going anywhere, sir.
Okay, can you just turn the car off for me then?
Am I obligated to turn my car off? I'm not intending to go anywhere. I'd like to handle this matter and settle it right now. I have no reason to leave. Why would I do that?
Okay. Well, my supervisor's here if you said you wanted to talk to him.
How you doing, sir?
Good. Hey, I'm Sergeant Valdez. I understand your sovereign stuff and everything and all that. Are you? What do you prefer to be?
Yeah, I don't.
Living man, or how do you?
I don't even like to get into the terms and
Sure,
labels.
no,
I'm just a man.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, just
The
like
living
you
man
are.
or just the man. Or
Just a
however
man.
you wanna do
Just
it.
like
I
you
got
are a man. You know, you're a man. I'm a man.
Understood.
And from my understanding, again, like I told this man, was that I've done my research. I have a conviction in my heart.
Okay.
My mind and my logic aligns with that. Logic, morals, and ethics. This is private property. I purchased it legally and lawfully.
Understood.
And I'm taking it from point A to point B. And the Supreme Court has ruled that I do not need to register, license, or any of that unless I'm doing commerce on the roadways.
Does he? Do you understand the reason he pulled you over? And you
Absolutely
the reason
not.
why? Okay.
Absolutely
Have
not.
you been told why you've been pulled over this afternoon?
He told me his perception, but I don't understand it at all.
Okay.
So you have all these law dictionaries which give all these different definitions for all these different phrases in legalese, but to the population they mean something else. I'll give you an example. When a police officer is telling you what you've done wrong and what you're going to be charged with or whatever, they'll say at the end, invariably, because this is the spiel, do you understand? Now, to us, of course, it means, do you comprehend what I've just said? That's not what it means in legalese, in the terms of statute law. What do you understand means is, do you stand under me? Do you acknowledge my basically my power over you? Do you contract with me having power over you? Do you stand under me? So when a police officer says to you, do you understand, it's absolutely vital, also getting this on video whenever you can, to say, no, I do not understand. I do not stand under you.
So we're not wasting time and being naive on understanding all this stuff. You're an educated man. You understand what your beliefs are. We have our certain rules that we have.
They're not my, can we just say, I don't mean to be, I'm not being a dick. They're not my beliefs, sir. It's a knowing that I've come to based on eternal truth. This truth is not going to change whether you understand.
Your heart.
It's a conviction. It's a conviction. The same thing the court will have to use to either convict me or not, because it rests in my heart and it cannot be changed by any other man's belief. A belief and a conviction are two very different things.
I understand. I understand. And you hold it true to yourself.
Absolutely. I live by certain morals, logic, and ethics that I hold myself to at all times.
You have a belief in the Constitution.
Not a belief. I have a knowing that the Constitution is codified based on universal law, that no man has the right to rule over any other man. That will always be a truth since the day we came here to the day we die, because it is illegitimate and is based on coercion, duress, and force. Because it is illegitimate and is based on coercion, duress, and force.
Part of the problem in the non-recognition of the human condition of slavery is most people do not understand what the condition of duress is and why it is so immoral to conduct upon anyone. I'm going to explain what duress is. And these enforcers of slavery are continuously conducting duress upon other beings. And they have no natural right to perform duress and keep other people in a state of duress. And the people who are under this state of duress have every right to end it by whatever means they choose to end it. They have the right. Now, see, I want to make it clear today, I'm not suggesting a direct course of action to anyone. I'm just trying to explain to you what your natural rights are to do. You might be perfectly within your natural law right to take a behavior and yet still die because you take that behavior. To do the right thing is not always the safe thing to do. I'm not talking about what's safe in this presentation. I'm talking about what's our right to do. Naturally and inherently in creation. Is it a right or is it not a right? That's all I care about. I'm not talking about whether negative consequences will be rained down upon me by brainwashed cult members if I perform the behavior that I have the right to perform. I'm just trying to conceptually have you understand that the right to do a specific behavior to end duress exists in nature. So let's look at what duress is. Duress is a condition, a continuous condition of coercion, of the free will of a being or group of beings by another being or group of beings through threats of violence and or actual acts of violence if those being coerced do not comply with the decrees or commands they are given. That's what duress is. It's someone saying to you, you will comply to my decrees or commands, or I threaten you with violence if you don't comply. That's the condition of duress. When people are held in the condition of duress, they are unlawfully, and I mean unlawfully not by man's law, but by natural law, prevented from exercising their free will to engage in rights which they actually possess, and or they are coerced through threats of violence to perform behaviors against their free will. Meaning if they don't do something, violence will be conducted upon them.
Video showing a couple celebrating a birthday being beaten and tased by police. They are now filing a civil rights lawsuit.
Or if they do something that the masters tell them they must not do, violence will be conducted upon them, even if that behavior is one of their rights. That is what duress is. That's what duress always has been. That's what duress always will be. And every single individual in this room, listening on video, and in the entire world is living in the condition of duress, whether they know it or not. I am under duress. You are all under duress. Every person here is living in a state of continuous duress. And there is no one on this planet that has the right to hold anyone in the condition of duress, and every person held under the condition of duress has the right to end that condition immediately upon its beginning, by whatever means necessary to end it. That is our natural law right, our birthright.
So you have a knowing?
I have a knowing. It is unchanging. I am the same yesterday as I am today as I will be tomorrow.
Okay, and I hope you can respect that. Obviously, we have a knowing and understanding.
You have a belief system that you are adhering to, and it is not in line with truth, sir.
It may not be in line with your truth. But
no, the truth is unchanging. You have your perspective, I have my perspective.
Well, that's just it. That's a difference.
By us conversing, we come to one truth.
Absolutely.
And that truth is unchanging.
We might not come to an agreement on the truth, but we will come to a truth.
The universe has one truth that we all must come to understand. If we don't, we will suffer consequences, individually and together.
I appreciate your cooperation and understanding with it. You've been more than pleasant to deal with on it, and I've dealt with many people that have the same understanding of things as you do and stuff like that. So let me talk to my officers and see what the plan is here and stuff, and I appreciate your cooperation.
I appreciate you, sir. You've been cordial with me, you had a good rapport with me, and you haven't been forceful in any way.
I got no reason why, so thank you for your cooperation. Give me 1 second, my man, I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
So how would you refer to me? Would you refer to me as Mr. Valdez or just a man? So I know from my education.
Mr. Valdez.
I don't expect you to say Sergeant Valdez or anything.
Yeah, I mean, even a judge, right? Like any man, once you take it out of the, a man has duties and responsibilities, right? So one of those duties and responsibilities would be acting as someone.
Sure.
Right? So a judge is acting as a judge, but he is a man first.
If you're employed in whatever you do, what's your trade and what do you do that's your specialty as far as employment? Would you be referred to your title of employment? So like if you were a DJ or something at a club?
Absolutely not.
So how do you
Absolutely not, because that is an ability to respond. That is a responsibility that I take on in order to generate currency in this realm. But who I am and what I am is even beyond a man, because the man is I'm only taking temporary possession of my physical body.
But, yeah, I would love to have coffee with you. Anyway.
I'm sure you would. Because I know where a lot of you guys stand. You know, a lot of this shit's bullshit.
Here's the thing, sir. So what I have told my officer, instructed my officer is, you know, obviously you have your idea of what you're going to do and what you're focused on and stuff. And I said, well, you know, if he's not going to identify himself and, you know, we're not going to issue him a summons or anything else like that, and he's been more than cordial with us stuff. I asked him to get the VIN at least off the vehicle so we could document the VIN on the vehicle, and that's all I asked him to do. But you have the VIN covered up, so that's why he was looking for the VIN, and that's all I was telling him to do. And he was just going to cut you out of here and get you out of here.
Okay.
So that's what he wanted to do, and if you're good with it, that's what I'd like him to do, is just grab the VIN so we can get you out of here and get you on your way. And if you'd like my business card, I'll give you my business card, and more than happy to do that.
Now, am I obligated to do that?
No, I'm asking you. That's all I'm asking you.
You're personally asking me.
I'm personally saying, if you're good with it, if you can do the VIN and get my officer out of here, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, and what's the reason for that? Just to make sure it's not a stolen vehicle?
That's all I want to do. And I don't believe, like I told you, you're being more than cooperative. You pulled over, which is not common, and the fact that it's not punched or anything else like that. And I understand what your practice.
Now, typically, I just stick with, I don't comply with anything that I'm not obligated to. Because as a man, you're asking me to do you a favor, to make sure this vehicle's not stolen, I will do so. However, as a man, if something comes to that after what you just told me, because you are going to cut me loose, you're not going to give me any summons.
I'm not going to pull you out of a car. I'm not going to take you to Jefferson County Jail. I'm not going to do anything.
You're not going to give me any tickets or any summons?
No, we're not. We're just going to grab the VIN.
Okay.
If you're good with that.
That's fine.
Are you okay with my card?
Sure.
All right, I appreciate it.
And if you ever want to get together on personal time and have a conversation, I'm more than open and willing to do that. As a matter of fact, I look at it as a duty and a responsibility as an American to educate or to help, not even educate, I don't want to bring it to an ego thing, but to bring more understanding together to who and what we are doing here. You know, what our shared role in being Americans is.
What about, like, so with you, obviously you go shopping and stuff to get stuff and everything. And do they confront you when you don't wear your mask or anything? Do they confront you when you don't wear your mask?
Yeah, they do. So, you know, but
is it all cool though? You go in and they don't say anything?
I converse with them the same way that I talk to you. You know, I try to be loving, I try to be compassionate, I try to be faithful, and I try to deliver them a message that touches their spirit.
Okay.
So that they can open their mind and heart to the truth that we're all supposed to be experiencing here.
Yeah, that's fascinating stuff. Okay, well, I appreciate you talking to me about it and stuff like that.
I appreciate you having a care in your heart, man. There's not many people nowadays who care for anything, let alone truth and what's right.
It's a crazy world right now. Do you believe in email and stuff, or no? You don't do it?
I mean, yeah, why not?
Would you be willing to email me stuff?
Sure.
Can I put my email on there?
Absolutely. This is a good officer, and I want to put this officer on camera. This is Ricky Valdez. They just pulled me over. No license, no place, no nothing, but that's fine because you don't need that to travel from point A to point B. And this man was willing to listen to me and understand what I was saying, and he could tell that I'm not up to no good out here, you know, and this is what the human experience is supposed to be about.
I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
You have a good day, my friend. You take care of yourself.
I appreciate you, Mr. Valdez.
Thank you. Be safe, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's how you do it, folks. That's how you do it right there. And I hope all you motherfuckers, look, I can't get this window up now. I'm all nervous and shit. But I hope all you motherfuckers are watching. I hope you're all watching, okay? All you people who told me that go ahead and try that shit with the police and see what they do. Well, I just tried it. No license, no registration, no insurance, no nothing, okay? They told me many times that the first guy, we're going to arrest you, we're going to do whatever. No, whatever. Stick to it. Stick to your fucking truth. Supervisor came, he said, we're not doing anything. We're not going to summon you. We're not going to do anything. You seem to know what you're talking about, okay? Then he asked me as a man, can I see your VIN? Because I have it covered up. As a favor, can I see it? I normally don't do that. I said, you know what? You can read my VIN to make sure that my car is not stolen, okay? But I didn't even need to do that. He said, you're not even obligated to do that. But as a man, he gave me his word, and I showed it to him. So here we are. The cops are going to let me go right here on Colfax in Colorado. No license, no registration, no insurance, no nothing, because I don't need any of that to travel from point A to point B. The Supreme Court has ruled on it. So now I'm going to post this video, and I hope everybody enjoyed it. And I'm feeling good about myself right now.
The only way out of this slavery, which is the human condition, is to wake up and stop complying with fake laws which are meant to enslave you.
I'm really imploring the people and all the peoples around the world, for God's sake, stop giving your democratically elected governments the benefit of the doubt. They are not deserving of that. They are not. Stop rationalizing whatever your government is doing. Stop rationalizing and come up with some good intentions. They have no good intentions. Never. As I said before, in the entire history of mankind, there has never been a political elite concerned about the well-being of regular people. And it isn't any different now. Why should it? Stop giving them the benefit of the doubt. Because I can tell you, you cannot comply your way out of a tyranny. It is impossible. Trying to do so, you will only feed a gigantic alligator in the hopes of being eaten last. But guess what? Your turn will come, and then you will be the one swallowed up. I also have to ask the people, end your silence. Speak up. For God's sake, stop complying. Start rebelling. They're out to get you if you do not resist. I would also urge you to stop voting for those who inflict this psychological abuse on you, who mock you for their own good. In order to deal with this unfree world, to defy this unfree world, I have decided to become so absolutely free that my very existence is an act of rebellion. And that's what we all need to do.
I say fake laws because the government can't make real laws. Laws only exist in nature, and the government can only make rules, regulations, and policies, which is why they use policy enforcers to make sure that people obey. But of course, not complying with their policies is only half the solution. The other part of the solution is to be in alignment with natural law. But what is natural law? It's basically the unseen spiritual laws that exist in nature that govern human behavior. For example, sane people just instinctively know that it's wrong to harm another person or to kill another person. This is a reflection of natural law within us. We don't need some external entity to tell us that these things are right or these things are wrong. Information about natural law has generally been occulted, which means hidden, throughout human history, so that instead of humanity being free and in alignment with natural law, they're instead enslaved by fake laws made by government, which are designed to enslave you. Natural law has gone by different names throughout history, such as the law of cause and effect, which states that for every action, there exists an equal and opposing reaction. And it's also been called the golden rule, which says that you should do unto others as you would have them do unto you, and so on.
The knowledge of natural law and its operations constitutes what I call the most deeply occulted or hidden information that exists on this planet. You will not find any more hidden information. This is the thing that all the distractions are there for, to keep you from learning. The endless trivialities, the nonsense you hear on the news, all the video games, all of the nonsense television, the sports, it's all there to keep people from understanding this. And I can't get you to accept that or believe it, and I don't ask you to believe it. I'm telling you that's what they're trying to, from my years of being inside occult traditions that are very, very dark. I'm telling you, this is what they don't want you to know.
In your book, The Satanic Bible, you say, hate your enemies with a whole heart, and if a man smites you on one cheek, smash him on the other. Do you believe in this?
Yes, very much so. I think everyone does, except they cloak it in forms of false altruism or false morality. They feel that there's so much repressed aggression and repressed hostility that is never allowed to manifest itself because of teachings such as turn the other cheek, that it has made man an intrinsically vicious creature because he's bottled up all of these feelings, or he channels them into what would appear to be innocuous directions that are actually much more harmful to those who are around him.
Don't you think, or like some of your critics say, that Satanism is an excuse for sexual and orgiastic excesses of some of the people who like to look after the animal instincts?
Yes, I fully agree that it is an excuse, but then I also agree that Christianity has been an excuse for many too, because there are many sects of Christianity that believe that in order to attain a spiritual quality or some sort of communion with God, one must be purged of any carnal desires, and the only way to rid oneself of carnal desires is to release them fully.
How many people here today know that I was involved in the dark occult in my past? Good. Great. Okay. The powers that be want to seek to keep this information hidden from the people of the earth at all costs, because understanding this information about natural law will level the playing field and put an end to the currently entrenched systems of control that are operating on the earth. We should very clearly make a distinguishment between nescience and ignorance so that people fully understand the difference between these two concepts. There's two contexts to not knowing something. The first context is nescience. Okay? Nescience comes from the Latin. The prefix ne in Latin means not, or not present, or absent. Okay? And then sciere in Latin means to know. It's where we get the word science from. Okay? So you put them together, and nescience, it actually, those two roots form another word, nesciere. Nesciere in Latin means not to know, to not understand. But there's a connotation to it. It means to not understand because the specific information that you may be having a desire to understand is completely absent. It is not present, and you cannot actually aggregate that information. You can't bring those pieces of grammar together to form the sentence, okay? It's not present, okay? So you don't have it at all. It's unattainable. This should be clearly delineated from ignorance. Now, nescience is not someone's fault. The information just isn't there, okay? You can't be blamed for nescience. There is no blame in nescience. Ignorance carries blame. This is another thing. People want to think in the New Age movement there's no such thing as nobody's to blame. And that goes to that there's no cause for anything that's happening, as you'll hear a lot in the New Age circles. Okay? I very strongly put down these notions, or attempt to. Okay? There are causes and effects. There are people who are responsible for what is happening. There is blame. Blame exists. Okay? There are people who are culpable. We're going to talk about moral culpability later. So ignorance has blame attached to it and responsibility attached to it. Okay? It comes from the Latin verb ignorare in Latin. And this means not to know, just like nescience means not to know, but in a completely different connotation. The connotation of ignorance means you don't know even though necessary information is present and right there before you, because you have willfully refused or disregarded that information. Whether you've refused it because it made you feel uncomfortable, or whether you disregarded it because you felt that's not important for me to know. I don't need to know that. Or you feel you already understand something that contradicts with what's, the new thing that you're hearing or seeing. Okay? This is why I try to say to people, the impact of the word is almost lost to us, of the word ignorance, because of the way it's pronounced. I tell people, start pronouncing it ignorance. Ignorance. Then people will hear the word ignore in it, and the connotation becomes clear. It means you're ignoring it. Ignorance. Okay? That's how I like to say it now, because the connotation is clear that way. The information is there, the truth is there, and somebody wants to ignore it completely. Now, that is inexcusable, and there is blame that is attached with that. So what I ask people all the time is, do we have a nescient society, or do we have an ignorant one? Do we have an ignorant one? Is our society ensconced in nescience, or is it ensconced in ignorance? I would argue absolutely that we are ensconced in ignorance in society, not nescience. I think we are drowning in information. I think we are drowning in the truth that is all around us, but people are ignoring it, largely. Not everyone. There's many people who are very hungry for it and taking it in as fast as they can, you know? But I think the majority of human beings are in the state of ignorance, even though the truth is present all around us. And that constitutes what Art talked about earlier, this consensus trance, which people in the so-called truth community or truth movement have likened to sleep. They say that they are asleep. I liken it to hypnosis. If you look at the origins of the word hypnosis, right? It means suppressed knowledge. It comes from Greek. Hypo means under, as in hypodermic, under the skin. And gnosis means knowledge, the suppression of knowledge. Hypo means suppression also, under and suppression. So hypnosis is the suppression of knowledge. And that's the state that these people are in. And it's done by themselves. It's not, see, we have to stop looking at this as a victim relationship. This is a willful choice. In a time of overwhelming information available at people's fingertips, the truth being ignored is not an option. It's a willful decision that people are making. And it's a decision that they should be held accountable to because of what is going on, that they are ignoring, what they are allowing to go on in their name and not saying a thing about it.
But do you know who's losing out? The American taxpayers. They are the ones footing the bill for all of this, and most of them do not even want to do it. According to a new survey, only 32% Americans say the US should support Israel militarily. 68% say there should be a ceasefire. So there's little appetite for war in America, and it's understandable. Americans are grappling with high inflation. Food prices are up 25% since 2020. Rents are up by 20%. Electricity up by 25% again. And car insurance is up by 33%. Housing is becoming unaffordable. The cost of living crisis is squeezing savings. And credit card debt is soaring. Meanwhile, America's national debt is inching close to the $34 trillion mark, $34 trillion. So Americans feel they can ill afford to pay for another war. And yet, the Biden administration has been sending arms and more to Israel. Since the 7th of October this year, since the attack by Hamas, there have been direct commercial sales, meaning US defense contractors have been selling directly to Israel. Pending orders have been pushed up. Pentagon stockpiles have been redirected to West Asia. Plus, some in the administration have a stake in this. Take US Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin, for example. He's a former board member of Raytheon. The company is now known as RTX. It's a military contractor that provides weapons to Israel. Then there is Secretary of State Antony Blinken. In 2017, he co-founded West Exec Advisors. It works for military contractors, startups, and Israeli companies. And Blinken has advised Boeing, according to his financial disclosure. Boeing is supplying weapons to Israel too. So Biden's team was advising military contractors, and now the Biden administration is sending weapons to Israel, weapons that Israel uses to fight this war. And funding all of this are US tax dollars, basically American citizens.
Content to let evil run amok. All right? And then people will wonder, why are we losing freedom? Why is freedom on the wane? Why is totalitarianism and tyranny rising up? Why do we see so much control and obsession with control in our society? You know, they'll see that. Many of them will see the rising police state. They'll see the injustices in our society. They'll see the restrictions on our inherent natural liberty. Okay? But here's the thing, many of them will not make the transition to grasping. You know? They'll say, yeah, this is what's happening to the earth. It's being turned into a huge prison everywhere. And at the most rapid pace right here in America. Okay? And they'll see this lock going on to the cage, but the question that they never get to, they don't even get to the question, let alone the answer, is why. They'll talk about the symptoms. They'll describe the prison. They'll describe every corner of the cage accurately in many cases. They can tell you exactly how it's working. They can tell you all the different aspects of the control system, but they can't tell you why it's actually going into place. Why is that happening? Well, that's what this presentation answers. Why are we losing freedom? And it gets to the actual heart of that answer. So what this presentation constitutes is a master key that unlocks all the locks to all the doors on all the cages in the prison, if it is accepted. And once again, I don't tell you that belief is required for that, because truth is always present. It's always here. It's a matter of, will we perceive it as being present, acknowledge it's present by stop ignoring it, okay, and then accept it into ourselves, and then do something with it. Understanding is not the end. Taking in the knowledge and understanding it is the beginning. Action is required. See, knowledge is required, understanding is required, but then action is finally required. Above all, if change is to be created. And that's how the laws of attraction really work. So, will people as a whole, as a society, accept that master key? I can't answer that question. All I could do is try to place it into their hands. After I have taken that key and unlocked my personal prison, my personal cages, and freed my mind, all I can do is try to help people to see, here's how this key works. Here it is. Here's the information that constitutes that key. And here's how you put it to work in your life. That's all I can do. Can't make anybody take it.
Natural law expresses itself in our lives through 5 basic expressions that have a positive and a negative aspect, which then overall adds up to 10 expressions of natural law. The first expression is the energy or state of consciousness we use to create, and it can express itself either through love, which is the positive expression, or through fear, which is the negative expression. Fear is what stops consciousness from expanding and is the basis of unconsciousness. And by love, I don't mean romantic love or love for your family and friends, but love as in unconditional love. Love as in truth and an expression of consciousness in its most pure form. The second expression of natural law is a result of what energy or state of consciousness you use to create. It's how the process of creation starts. Is the initiating expression of natural law. So, if the foundation of your experience is based on love, the next expression of natural law will be knowledge and acceptance of truth, which is positive, and the negative expression of it will be ignorance, which is the refusal of truth. The next expression is the internal expression, which is what happens inside of us, depending on which expression of natural law, like love or fear, that we begin with. So if you begin with love, with consciousness, the positive internal expression of natural law will be sovereignty. And I'm not talking about sovereign citizens or any of that nonsense designed to stop people from looking into this. I mean sovereignty in the true meaning of the word, which simply means that you are not owned by anybody else. There is no external authority dictating to you how to live your life. In other words, it means that you are not a slave. The negative internal expression of natural law is confusion, which arises when there is ignorance. It can only happen when there's a lack of understanding. therefore a lack of knowledge. So confusion leads to internal anarchy. The word anarchy comes from a Greek word an, which means no, and archy comes from archon, which means rulers or masters. So anarchy simply means no masters and no slaves, which is what freedom is. So when you are unconscious, there is no internal master, there is nobody home. So you're basically at the mercy of circumstances, and more importantly, at the mercy of the powers that be, because you don't know yourself. The fourth basic expression of natural law is the external expression, which is what ends up happening in society as a result of what state of consciousness we used to create. So if we begin with love, the positive external expression becomes freedom or external anarchy, which means externally we will no longer have masters and consequently we will no longer be slaves. The negative external expression is control and slavery, which is external monarchy, where we are ruled by either a king or queen, or in the modern day, the government. The fifth basic expression of natural law is manifestation, or the result we create based on the state of consciousness that we begin with. The positive expression of manifestation is order and goodness, and the negative expression of it is chaos, which is manifested evil. So if we begin with love, we end up with freedom and order. And if we begin with fear, we end up with slavery and chaos, which is the current human condition. If we begin with fear, there is no other way but to end up with slavery and chaos. And if we begin with love, there is no other way but to end up with freedom and order. This is a law, and it's unchangeable. It's not a belief system or a religion or my own ideas that I came up with about life. This isn't even my information. It's just an eternal truth that has always been and always will be. All I have done is just discover it. And the only solution to the current human condition is to live in harmony with it, which we can't do while complying with fake laws made by government, which are designed to enslave you.
Politics. It's ugly, petty, revolting. Now, sometimes you might be tempted to participate. You might vote, not because there's anything worth voting for, but because you are desperately trying to vote against the greater of two evils. But when you vote for the lesser of two evils, you're still voting for evil. And you know it. Despite what you constantly hear from government and the mainstream media, your vote is not your voice. It's a hollow sham. And you know it. No, you're not free. No, your vote doesn't count. No, the ruling class doesn't care what you want. And it is a ruling class. The truth is, you own yourself. No one has a right to your life, your body, your time and energy, or the fruits of your labor without your consent. Of course, if someone commits aggression against you, trying to assault or rob you, you have the right to defend yourself. But you do not have the right to be the aggressor, the one who starts a fight. This is called the non-aggression principle, and even if you've never heard it called that, most of us learned this when we were little children. Don't hurt people, and don't take their stuff. Simple. So far, all of this may seem pretty obvious, and you're probably thinking, well, who would disagree with that? It's how most people think and act in their day-to-day lives. However, while most people understand the concepts of live and let live and peaceful coexistence, almost everyone has been taught to believe that there's an exception when it comes to politics and government. We've been taught that so-called lawmakers and law enforcers have the right to do things that the rest of us don't, that it's legitimate and necessary for government to tax and control you and me, even if we're not threatening or harming anyone. The truth is so easy to say, but so hard for most people to hear, because it goes against what you have heard all your life from parents, teachers, politicians, and the talking heads on TV. The truth is, no election, no constitution, no political ritual, nothing can give anyone the moral right to rule. They have no right to rule you, and you have no obligation to obey.
So in the end, the way to human freedom is living in alignment with natural law and also taking the way of disobedience to men's fake laws. Obedience has done much more harm to humanity than disobedience would have done. If all the armies disobey, there would be no war. Throughout history, there's been like 5,000 wars. Humanity has been fighting continuously somewhere or other on the planet. Killing goes on. It continues as if this is the whole purpose of being here. And what are all these armies based on? Obedience. Obedience teaches you blindness. It teaches you unintelligence. It teaches you that you don't have any responsibility on your own, just follow orders. But in some cases, the order is to kill people. Osho once said, obedience is not a virtue. In the name of obedience, more people have been killed, burned alive, and so on. But the key isn't to react and become disobedient. The key is to grow beyond the dualities of obedience and disobedience. You should have a bird's eye view of the whole situation, and according to your awareness, your consciousness, you should respond. Obedience has a simplicity to it. Disobedience needs a little higher order of intelligence. Any idiot can be obedient. In fact, only idiots can be obedient. The person of intelligence is bound to ask why. Why am I supposed to do it? The way to freedom is anarchy, and not the anarchy we've been conditioned to imagine when we hear that word. When most people hear anarchy, they think of chaos and disorder. But true anarchy is freedom. And like I said, the word anarchy comes from a Greek word an, which means no, and archy comes from archon, which means masters. So anarchy simply means no masters and no slaves, which is what freedom is.